I'm just going to give a brief introduction. We have Dr. Bharat Vatwani and Dr. Vikram Patel joining us. Vikram, I'll ask you to take over in a minute, but I just want to give a brief introduction. As I've said, all the full introductions, I have to be away from that microphone, sorry. The full introductions are all online. We're very, very fortunate to have with us today Dr. Bharat Vatwani. He's a psychiatrist. He's the co-founder and the head of the Shraddha Rehabilitation Foundation. It's an NGO that's dedicated to the rescue, the treatment, and the rehabilitation of mentally ill, destitute people, to reuniting them with society, from which they're often alienated. You will see some of his work here. It's some of the most extraordinary work, and for this work, among many, many awards, honors, and recognitions in 2018, he was the winner of the Magsaysay Award, which is widely thought of as the Asian Nobel. So thank you very much for joining us. We're very privileged to have you. And just as privileged, we are to have Dr. Vikram Patel. I will give a briefer introduction to Vikram because he's a friend of the Institute, a member of our executive committee. He's also a very distinguished scholar and expert on mental health. Thank you both very much.
So thank you very much, Hitesh, for that introduction, and especially thank you on behalf of our community, Dr. Vatwani. If I can call you Bharat.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for being with us. Bharat was actually, we managed to grab Bharat for a couple of days in between a multi-city lecture tour that he's doing in the US. He told me he hardly ever travels. He doesn't have a mobile phone. He doesn't have an Uber app. And I thought there must be very few people left on this planet who actually do not have a mobile phone, and I envy you for that. So Bharat, the plan for this 1 hour that we have together with Bharat is that it's a kind of a fireside chat, but I say it's a kind of because Bharat also has slides. And so some of the questions may appear a little scripted. That's because they are, so that in fact the sequence of slides that Bharat has spooled can actually follow the sequence of questions that we have agreed. But I hope that we will be able to make good progress and leave at least 10 or 15 minutes, I hope, for some questions from all of you. What you're about to see and hear is one of the most inspiring examples of social justice and social medicine that I personally have also encountered firsthand. So Bharat, let me start with the big prize, okay? For those of you who are not familiar with the Magsaysay Award, it is not just Asia's Nobel Prize, but it has actually been given to some of the most distinguished intellectuals and activists in Asia, the vast majority of whom have worked on issues to do with human rights, environmental protection, and such like. And almost rarely do I remember a physician, leave aside even a psychiatrist, ever winning the Magsaysay Award. So I wanted to just ask you, when you got this news, what was your reaction? Why were you picked? How did you feel about being picked for this prize?
In Hindi, there's a slogan which says that Allah Mehrbaan to Gadha Pelwan, which means that if the gods are willing, then even the donkey can get an award. I thought I was in that category. But having said that, in hindsight, when I thought about it, I thought that the reason why they chose this particular thing was, it is a very unusual thing. It is a very unique thing. And by and large, when we talk of community psychiatry or when we talk of goals in psychiatry, we are invariably trying to capture the low disease spectrum, low intensity spectrum of psychiatry, early anxiety, early depression, or something of that kind. Nobody had truly looked at these people who were homeless and mentally ill in a professional manner. So I guess the uniquity of the whole thing got the award. If you ask me honestly whether I deserved the award, I don't think I deserved the award. There's a statistical logic to that, which is that in 2011, the last census which was done in India, the number of homeless, mentally ill people was approximately 1,000, literally 10 million. So what had we done? At the time of getting the award, all that we had done was rescued, treated, and reunited with their families across India, 7,000 of them, that's all. So the golden question arises as to what happens to the remaining 993,000 mentally ill. I mean, when I got the news, I felt like hiding beneath the sofa. That was my immediate interaction.
And what impact has it had?
It has had a terrific impact. It has had the reason why I accepted the award was because I knew it would have an impact on the entire cause of the wandering mentally ill, what we call the homeless mentally ill, and on mental illness per se. I'll give you an example. When we started off the Karjat project in 2006, we used to pick up patients exclusively from the road, rescue them exclusively from the road. In the 1 year before COVID and in the 1 year after COVID, we have rescued 2,106 destitutes who were homeless and mentally ill, of which we have actually rescued only 132 ourselves from the road. The remaining 129 came from police referrals, 441 came from different government institutions all over India who were housing these mentally ill, sheltering these mentally ill, but could not reunite them because they had difficulty, they didn't have the human infrastructure, they didn't have the social workers talking different languages, etc., etc. In the process, we have ended up interacting with 33 government institutions across India. We have 3 memorandum of understanding with different state mental health authorities, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu. Of the 2,100, we picked up 1,406 patients from different NGOs. There are innumerable NGOs across India which are sheltering the homeless. Now, invariably, the homeless, when it is picked up, nobody knows whether the patient is mentally ill or not. Invariably, it turns out that he does have mental illness and they don't know what to do with it. So they have been referring these patients to us. So, and in the process, we have interacted with 133 NGOs across India. That's just phenomenal when it comes to increasing the amount of awareness which has happened, increasing the amount of reunions which has happened, increasing the amount of hope that has been generated, increasing the amount of awareness which has been generated. One of my close friends, Dr. Harish Shetty, he's a psychiatrist, well-known psychiatrist of India. He said that when you take a patient who is mentally all right into the village, it is like the roar of a lion in the village. And the entire village realizes that mental illness is a treatable entity. So therein lies the impact of the award on this. Had I not got the award, boy oh boy, I would have still been doing the work, but it would not have had the impact which it has had now, currently.
Thanks, Bharat. So let me actually wind back to the beginning, going back to the very early days as a medical student. You've chosen some very unpopular things, and I'm going to return back to the theme of what makes you very special. You do things that most people would choose not to do, but you intentionally choose these things, and I wanted to actually explore those choices. The first choice you made was to take up psychiatry. Certainly back then, and I think you probably trained a few years earlier than I did, I certainly can remember it was easily the most stigmatized and unpopular choice in medicine. So I want to just ask you, what made you choose this unpopular field?
See, I would attribute it to the fact that I was exposed a lot to social workers in my own childhood. I lost my dad when I was very early, when I was young, when I was 12 years old. So we went through a lot of hardships. We were selling in the good old days door-to-door Alistair MacLean and James Hadley Chase books. We were having a circulating library of our own. I remember having sold photos of Cary Grant in the good old days. I remember having sold photos of cine actors in our class and outside. So that kind of exposed me to a lot of hardships. I guess a fallout of these hardships is that you end up empathizing with the underprivileged. It's a feeling which comes subconsciously. You don't realize it, but it happens. Having said that, I entered medicine because both my elder brothers were in medicine. When I entered, I was an absolute misfit. I found it very difficult to get into that rote memory kind of stuff which was required to become a doctor. In fact, I was on the verge of giving up medicine and going in for accountancy. But what happened was when I entered the ward, Grand Medical College, JJ Hospital is full of patients. It is overflooded. In those days it was overflooded, even now it is overflooded. Patients are lying on the floor, patients are in beds. Somehow that spontaneous experiential facets of my life brought me into absolute emotional contact with those people. I didn't understand the technical diagnosis. Honestly, I don't understand the technical diagnosis even now in psychiatry. But the very fact that they were underprivileged, they were down and out, they were miserable, irrespective of the technical diagnosis, they were in bad shape. So somehow that touched my heart and I went into the line. As a further fallout, after I finished my medicine, I attempted general practice. I attempted to become a family doctor. I don't think you're aware. But I flopped in that. That took a break in my studies. Then I went back to psychiatry. In psychiatry, it so happened that my lecturer was one Dr. Smita Ganla. She was my wife and I fell in love with her. And you know how it is, when you fall in love, you don't study. So I didn't study and I ended up failing my first attempt in MD psychiatry. And as yet, when patients come and ask me what is the difference between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, I said, I don't know what is bipolar, but don't worry, you'll become all right. So I guess that your own experiences help in shaping the way you are. There's a very eminent philosopher, Carl Jung. He's a psychoanalyst and a philosopher. He said everything is synchronized. Nothing happens by chance. Everything is synchronized. So I felt that whole process of me having lost my father, me having entered into medicine, me having met my wife, me having met a kindred soul in my wife, I would say. And having the same empathy and feeling that thing for the underprivileged made me go into this line. Now again, coming to the actual social work. We were, both of us, I and my wife were sitting in a restaurant having our routine snacks, when across the road, we saw somebody who was mentally ill, long hair, disabled, talking to himself, hallucinating. At that point of time, we didn't think of touching him with a 10-foot pole. Until that gentleman actually picked up an empty coconut shell, which was lying there. There was a gutter water which was running behind. He put that coconut shell into the gutter water, dipped it and drank it at a single shot. That was emotional churning for all of us, for both of us. Not realizing what was appropriate, what was inappropriate. We had just set up a small nursing home at that time. We reached out to him and asked him, will you come with us? He agreed. That became our first patient. The basis of which was just that empathy for a man who was down and out. Here we were on this side of the road, eating this and having nice water and healthy food. And there he was on the other side of the road, drinking gutter water. Believe it or not, that patient turned out to be a qualified Bachelor of Science graduate. He turned out to be a diploma in medical lab technology. He had come to Mumbai for a job. He did not get it and he ended up schizophrenic. Those were not the days of the mobile. So he improved. As he improved, we sent a letter over to his house. Believe it or not, his father was a Zilla Parishad superintendent in Andhra Pradesh. And that gentleman came down by flight from Hyderabad to pick up his son. I'll show you this is us in the good old days picking up the patients. This is a civil engineer from VJTI. Those of you who are familiar with Mumbai know what is VJTI, top-end institute. This lady who's on the right side is still following up with us. And coming to this is the gentleman who was first helped out by us. So one patient led to another and we suddenly felt, both I and my wife felt that, my God, there's no institution dealing with these patients who are homeless and mentally ill. And they'll never reach out to you for help. The tragedy of the entire situation, be it in India, in the whole of South Asia, be it in the US, is that they don't reach out to you for help. They're not asking you for help. They're lost in their own world. So somebody proactively has to reach out, has to rescue them and try and reinstate the whole process. Going further in our story, this gentleman was a lecturer from JJ School of Arts. A lecturer from JJ School of Arts on the roads. Just the thought that, my God, premier institute, JJ School of Arts, well known in the whole of Asia, and he's on the roads. And one of his students contacted us and he said, can you help out? In those days, I didn't have a social worker. Me and my wife were alone. We had that small nursing home. I went in my ambassador car and I brought him to the center. He improved. It took time. It took 6 months. In the meantime, what happened was that his students used to regularly keep on coming and talking to him on every Sunday. And his fellow colleagues and everybody said that, why don't we have a fundraising art exhibition? In my entire lifetime, I had not seen any art. I didn't know what was art. I was from a very poor background. I didn't know what was art. I mean, somebody said, don't worry, I'll manage. We'll help you out. They arranged the entire exhibition at Jahangir Art Gallery. 141 artists from across India and abroad contributed their paintings, including S.H. Raza from Paris, including Budikins Chawla from Canada, and so many other people. Anjali Lamenan, Bikash Bhattacharya, Manu Parekh, you name it. All the big shots were there. That outpouring of empathy for the cause of the mental illness helped us in setting up our first center in the outskirts of Mumbai in 1997. This was 1997. And the exhibition was held in 1993. Now again, I'm going on my own. At that time, we thought we had won the battle. Until all the neighbors around, all the neighbors in the surrounding buildings, they felt that no, we cannot have a mental hospital within our area. They said, welcome to the house of high-end residential areas. And here, our children and our female this thing are at danger because of mental illness. Things went haywire. To the point that they took out what in Hindi is known as a morcha, a mob, shouting, Dr. Vatwani, hi, hi, which means that down with Dr. Vatwani, down with Dr. Vatwani, down with Shraddha. And in the melee, which happened, my wife got pushed and she fell to the ground. There is a member of parliament called Jayantiben Mehta. We went and met her. She gave a call to the police commissioner of Mumbai. The police commissioner gave a call to the deputy police commissioner of Mumbai. And the deputy police commissioner appointed a constable outside our NGO. And we were doing social service under police protection. Such is life. Then she herself came to inaugurate the center. In the meantime, all the people around put up huge banners in between buildings. Mental hospital in our area, mental hospital in our area. And they went to court. That was the ultimate year. When they went to court, the guy representing them is the current Chief Justice of India, Dhananjay Chandrachud. And on our side was Anand Grover, also a very well-known Supreme Court advocate. Now, at that point, I felt, my wife felt, another trustee, Dr. Bhimani felt, that why are we doing all this? Why are we doing all this? The society doesn't want you. The patient has never sought your help. Let's face facts. And you are being bombarded on all sides and you are worried as to when a mob will come and when a mob will hit you or when a mob will do something. And the court was very far away from us. So there we were going all the way to the court and coming back, all the way to the court and coming back. And believe me, it was by far in my entire 35 years, the most traumatic phase that we have ever gone through. Every day we were in tears, every day. I say this to all the students who are involved with community medicine and social medicine. Every day we were in tears. But we felt that if we do not continue, if we give up now, then for the rest of our lives, we will never be able to look at a man who is homeless and mentally ill. But it was touch and go. Believe me, it was touch and go. I mean, it was literally, you can say 50.001 versus 49.999. But we won the battle. And the court gave us permission to continue. So the essence of what I'm trying to talk to all the students who are there and all the students who might be hearing this virtual is that at the end of the day, it is your conviction in what you believe is right. Irrespective of whether the cause demands it or not. I mean, they have never reached out. Till today, they are not reaching out to us. It's not that the homeless and the mentally ill are reaching out to anybody. They're just lost in their world. Some NGOs, some mental hospitals, some Shraddha picks them up, brings them to their center, and they are there for the rest of their lives. Now, who will take the next step forward? Who will restore them to sanity? Who will take them to their families? That is the golden question. In India, it is a norm that people spend $5,000 just to have their children spend their Diwali or their Christmas or their vacation for 1 week or 2 weeks with their families. That 5,000 is justified because it's an emotional thing. Your son is with you. Why is it that a man who's on the street, who's homeless, who's mentally ill, does he not have rights? Does he not want to be with his family? Does he not want to be in his own state, speaking the language which he has learned right from childhood? Eating the food which he has eaten right from childhood. Those are golden questions which nobody answers. Because those guys are not reaching out to you in the first place. So they are not unrepresented. They are silent, below the carpet. That's the tragedy.
Thanks, Bharat. That's a very powerful story of your beginnings. So you won the court case. Did you win the hearts and minds of your neighbors?
I did. They came and actually apologized, and they came every Sunday and brought sweets and everything. They did. I did.
Well, that's remarkable.
Yeah.
What made them? Because I would have imagined their reaction would have been even more hostility.
No, what happened was one of them decided, let's go and have a look at the center. So they came inside, they met the patients, and then their hearts melted. They felt that, yeah, these guys deserve to be home. When the patient has become all right, if you ever enter our center, like how you have, the first thing the patient does is ask you, when am I going home? So to them, home is somewhere in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka, wherever. They want to be with those people. They want to eat that food. They want to be with their relatives. So that kind of got hold of the emotionality of the neighbors, and they felt that it's the right thing. It's a good thing that we are doing. Though they donated money also, few of them.
So with all this wealth of experience that you've built up in these last 30 years of work, has it been 30 years?
35.
35 years. What message would you like to give general audiences, especially people who are living with their own mental health difficulties or caring for someone who has a mental health problem, someone they're very close to?
Again, sharing something very personal. I was an avid trekker in the good old days. So I decided to go for a trek to Kailash Mansarovar in 1998. Kailash Mansarovar was in Tibet at that time. Now it is annexed by China. So that was a government trek which started from Delhi and ended at Delhi and required 31 days. So I applied for the trek. When I applied for the trek, I was given to understand that my number would come up 4 months down the line. 3 lakh people applied, 800 people were chosen. So at that time, what happened was that suddenly I got a telegram from Delhi and saying that you have been chosen and within 3 weeks you have to come. At that exact moment, I had admitted 2 private patients whose language I could understand. They were Gujaratis and I can speak fluent Gujarati. So I could understand their language, and they were males and they required a male psychiatrist and they required prolonged admission. So I was in a dilemma as to whether to go for the trek, which has a huge religious connotation. It's like going for the Hajj for the Muslims, It's a big thing. So I was in 2 minds whether to go for the trek or whether to opt for these patients. I thought, no, duties first. Let's continue with the patients. My own desire to meet the gods will wait. Coincidentally, that trek, that particular batch in which I was destined to go, the entire batch expired. There was a landslide. The entire porters, the ponies, the labor, the entire batch of 56 people expired. There are 4 or 5 doctors also in that. That led me to think that, look, God has saved me. Now, God could not have saved me just to look after my family and my children. My youngest kid was 3 years old at that time. My eldest was 10. I have 4 children. That made me think as to, my God, there must be something. So I was hunting. And believe it or not, I couldn't get an answer. So I started getting depressed. And I was literally, at one point of time, I was suicidal, literally. I mean, I remember one particular night, I was holding on to a huge chunk of tablets in my hand and telling myself, let's do it now. It is one thing to have a lofty mission statement, dedicated to the wandering mentally ill on the streets of India. You know the truth. You know that all that you have got is a center which only holds 20 patients. So those were difficult times. I ventilated by writing a lot of poetry. I'll be reading out one at the end of the day. And I ended up writing a book of Alone, Isolated and Lonely, which was again a kind of a ab reaction to whatever I was going through and which I felt this wandering mentally ill were going through at that point of time, because we had a capacity only of 20. Providence being what it is, in the year 2004, I ended up meeting Baba Amte. Now here is again an unusual story. Baba Amte is a well-known social worker in India, and I don't know how many of you know that. But anyway, he has a huge setup of 2,500 odd leprosy patients in those days, which he had set up, wherein there was a Gram Panchayat, there was a branch of a bank, and there was a post office branch. So I went there and I was flabbergasted with his work. Unbelievable, amazing work. But he was not there. So he was staying with his son in another area called Hemal Kasa, in the interiors of Gadchiroli district. I thought I had a car. I said, let's go. We went. I was there, my one social worker was there, and one of my friends was there. While going around 100 kilometers before Hemal Kasa, before where Prakash Amte was staying, we came across a guy on the streets, both hands, both legs in chains. He had been chained perhaps by society because he had violent tendencies, he was a schizophrenic, and he was on the roads. And he was wandering, walking. So the first instinct that gets to you is, you're 1,000 kilometers away from home. Don't touch him. So my social worker asked him, will you come with us? He said, no, why should I come? I thought the matter is ended. We went further down, 20 kilometers. When that setting sun somehow got to me, and I felt, my God, the darkness is ensuing, and this guy is alone. And he's in chains. And there's not a soul in sight. Gadchiroli is a dense jungle area. Only single road passing. I said, my God, what will happen to him? And I did a U-turn. When I did a U-turn, because I was a psychiatrist, I could convince him to get into the car. Now, both his hands and both his legs were in chains. He was passing urine and motions in his clothes since God knows when, stinking badly. I had a scissor with me. I cut off all his clothes. I had a blanket with me. I put it down, put him into the car and started off. Now, again, those were not the days of the mobile. Prakash Amte, Baba Amte didn't know we were coming. So I was absolutely tremulous. I was wondering, my God, they'll scream. That, what have you done? I mean, we don't even know you. You have brought somebody who's in such a bad shape into our center. So I went there, and Prakash Amte was sitting there and Baba Amte was sitting there. I said, look, this is the kind of work that we are doing. Can you just unchain him? Therein started what I would call empathy and compassion. This is Prakash Amte and this is the gentleman in chains. Prakash Amte called for a chisel and a hammer on his own and started removing those chains. It was a very delicate affair. It took 1.5 hours for him to do it. This is again, they actually called a hacksaw and the chains were removed. All along, I was very silent because I didn't have a word to speak. I was totally stunned. Next day morning, I got up at 4:30 and went down to the veranda. And I found that this social worker, Baba Amte, was awake and he was in tears. So I said, my God, what happened? He said, whole night I have not been able to sleep. I said, why? He said, whole night I was thinking as to how could society do this, as to put a man in chains and leave him to fend for himself. And you have done good. You have done good. And he actually took the chains, put it on his hands and legs and attempted to walk. Oh boy. Oh boy. That morning changed my life. I felt I just visited his center in Anandvan, wherein there is a room which is double the size of this room, full of awards. He had received the Padma Shri, he had received the Padma Vibhushan, he had received the Gandhi Peace Prize, he had received the Templeton Prize, all awards on one side. His compassion for a man who is down on the roads was unbelievable. Unbelievable. He actually was in tears. Having bathed and cleaned 2,500 leprosy patients, that man still had not lost out on that basic sensitivity for a man who is down and out, for the underprivileged. That lesson I'll never forget in my life. Until my dying day, I'll never forget that man on the street is 100 times more important than any other award, everything that can ever happen to you. That is the man on the street. I felt I had those seeds, but he kind of watered it, consolidated it, gave it roots. This is me with Baba Amte. And that started off with, and his quotes are just brilliant. He writes, quote unquote, I have always been drawn to this fellowship of pain. I think God created pain because without it, there would be no tenderness. It is very easy for a man to love God, but it is difficult for him to follow the commandment, love thy neighbor. The herd doesn't wait for the wounded deer. The herd doesn't wait for the wounded deer. Therefore, someone else must help. And he felt he was the chosen one for the leprosy patients, and he felt I was the chosen one for the homeless, mentally ill. So this is our center at Karjat. I'm just flipping through. Yesterday we heard the talk of Diana Ek, brilliant talk. Coincidentally, the logo of Shraddha, Shraddha in Sanskrit means devotion. And the logo of Shraddha, from the left side if you see, is the symbol of Ganpati, the first Hindu symbol of Ganpati. After that is the symbol of Allah. After that is the cross of Christianity. After that is the Ek Onkar of Punjabi Gurmukhi. And after that is the Parsi symbol of fire. Signifying that all humanity is one, all faith is one, all suffering is one. So we have, a lot of patients whom we have picked up and treated and, over the years. This is a very depressed female on the road. Now, I think we leave it at this. Yeah. Next.
Well, I think you might want to share some stories. Did you want to share a story about any individuals with their permission that you can share with us today about their journeys to recovery?
I can. Yeah. This gentleman was, in the good old days, before even our NGO had got registered, I used to go as a psychiatrist to Mother Teresa's Missionaries of Charity. I found this guy in chains over there. So I said, what is the matter? They said, he's very violent, etc. I said, no, you leave him and I'll take him just now. We took him. In those days, he improved with great difficulty. There were not that many drugs available. He improved and he was from Pune. So in those days, I had a motorcycle. I went on the motorcycle and 20 kilometers before his house, everybody said, oh, you're looking for this gentleman? He's there. You're looking for this gentleman? He's there. He's there. He's there. And I went over to his house. Now, when I went over, I met his mother and his father. They refused to come with me. So I was very upset. They came the next morning. The reason they came the next morning was because in that typical Maharashtrian style, they wanted to get a shawl for me. They wanted to get a coconut for me. They wanted to get a thali for me and kind of felicitate me. This photo on the right, which you see, is with his father and grandfather. His mother used to send me a rakhi for 5-7 years. Then he donated an ambulance to us. He donated an ambulance to Missionary of Charity also. Then when I got this Ramon Magsaysay award, that journalist asked me of Mumbai Mirror that, do you know somebody who will come and give a live interview? I said, yeah, I know somebody. He came all the way from Pune to Bombay to give the interview. That was breaking the stigma of psychiatry. And till today, he acknowledges to everybody that, look, this is what Dr. Vatwani did for me. Earlier, 35 years back, literally, This lady which you see is the mother of an orthopedic surgeon in Surat. So it's not that illness spares anybody. Good family, good everything. Mother somehow had Alzheimer's, went missing from the house, ended up in Chennai, from Surat to Chennai, back to the home. This is an Iranian gentleman. Again, picked up by us. In those days, we found it so this thing that suddenly there's a foreigner within our midst. Then my wife asked him, realized that he speaks Arabic. So then she started saying all the countries which speak Arabic. When she mentioned Iran, his eyes popped up. That's how we knew that he was from Iran. Then finally he improved and we reached out to the Consul General of Iran and they contacted his father. His father was very poor. He said, I can't come over. Please send him over. And we sent him over. So routinely, you would get very scared in handling somebody who's a foreigner and this and that and whatnot. But the essence of our work, the essence of the work of Shraddha right from beginning to end is to lay the focus and to lay the emphasis on the emotions of the other person. Would that Iranian boy want to live the rest of his life as a mentally ill, homeless on the streets of India? No. You may have the most fantastic of NGOs. You may have AC rooms and everything. Ask any person who immediately regains his senses that, do you want to live in this NGO for the rest of your life? No. I take him with me and I put him up in the Taj and I say, look, boss, you're here for the rest of your life. By the 7th day, he says, no, boss, give me back my home here. I want to go back. Simple. If he has a right to those emotions, why does a mentally ill, homeless not have a right to those emotions? That is the key question. And that is what drives you. That is what drives you. This gentleman was declared dead in 2018. I don't know how many of you are familiar with what is known as Chhat Puja in Bihar. It's a very auspicious day, more auspicious than Diwali. On that auspicious day, our social worker took him back to the village. The death certificate is on the right side. There was a huge upcry. The advantage of all these upcries is that there's a lot of awareness which is created. It truly legally doesn't go anywhere, but a lot of awareness is created. This gentleman is from Bangladesh. For 4 years he was with us. Before COVID we picked him up. After COVID we started the ball rolling. It took us 1 year of bureaucratic procedures to get the thing done because you know how it is. The police was very reluctant to give the NOC and this and that and whatnot. You keep on struggling, keep on struggling, keep on struggling. Our psychiatrist, young psychiatrist, dynamic, from Nimans, Dr. Swarali Konvilkar, went over, crossed the border, along with our social worker, Nitish Sharma, who's from Murshidabad in West Bengal, crossed the Indo-Bangladesh border and reunited him with his family. And you see the response. This response is despite 1 year of them being in video contact with their own son. Finally, the human being is a human being and emotions are emotions. And apart from that, when our psychiatrists reached there and neighboring villages came to know that there's a psychiatrist from India who has come, those people, sick, we had an OPD at that time, spontaneous outpatient thing. 60 patients were consulted by this Dr. Swarali Kondalkar. That goes to show how far basic empathy and basic emotions can take you. This is again, same patient, it became viral in the whole of Bangladesh. Even in India, there was a massive coverage of the whole thing. And the same police which was little reluctant in giving all that NOC and all, on their Instagram page, her photo and her receiving the award as Woman of the Year was put up on their Instagram for the one full day. So from what started off as rejection, gradually shifted to a point of acceptance and respect. That's what is possible.
Thanks, Bharat. What an inspirational story this is. Just listening to you, I'm thinking you have faced so many challenges. You chose a very unpopular discipline. You then went to work with perhaps the most marginalized group in the world. You can see those marginalized people on the streets of this city in spite of everything that we have here in terms of medical care. You describe the kind of challenges you faced with your neighbors and I'm sure with financing and so on. You're, of course, now at a point of great success in your mission, but you've taken 35 years to get here. And I wanted to hear a little bit about how you've kept your spirits up, how you've kept your spirits up and the spirits of the others who believed in you and in your mission.
I think touch wood, because like I said, I had gone through that phase in my childhood. So my level of empathy was always high. Having met Baba Amte, that key takeaway from that meeting of him at 4:30 in the morning was that compassion is where it's at, sensitivity is where it's at, giving is where it's at, understanding is where it's at. You have to imagine, it's like, you meet Nelson Mandela and you find, my God, that man still has that original sensitivity which was there on day one. You read his biography. You don't feel that thing that, my God, here's a gentleman who has passed 18 years in jail. He still has that sensitivity. In his interviews, he still has that sensitivity. So the key takeaway in all this social work, in all these community-driven programs, or the reason why I specifically wanted to make a talk on global health and social medicine, is that there has to be empathy which is driving you from beginning till end. Empathy, 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 empathy. There's no hatred in the voice of Gandhi. There's no hatred in the voice of Nelson Mandela. There's no hatred in the voice of... It's just understanding that there are different stratas of society and the marginalized right down at the bottom deserve their justice. They deserve it. There's a... How many of you have heard of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar? He is the drafter of the Constitution of India. He has written a book. One second, let me see if I can... Yeah. In which he writes, quote unquote, I usually like to quote unquote this thing, that men are born unequal. The book is named The Buddha and His Dhamma. Men are born unequal. Some are robust, others are weaklings. Some have more capacity, more intelligence, others have less. Some are well-to-do, others are poor. All have to enter into what is called the struggle for existence. And if in the struggle for existence, inequality is recognized as the rule of the game, the weakest will always go to the wall. Should this rule of inequality be allowed to be the rule of life? Some answer in the affirmative, claiming it results in the survival of the fittest. The question, however, is the fittest the best from the point of view of society? No one can give a positive answer. Now the question arises that if we, as civilized society, continue with this rule of inequality, wherefore is justice? Wherefore is equality? Wherefore is brotherhood? Where is compassion? Where is mercy? Where is empathy? Where is everything? Where is love? And above all, where is that supposed God within all of us? All of us have been through scriptures. All of us have been through Gita. Yesterday we spoke about the Mahabharata. We spoke about the Ramayana. We spoke about we go through the Bible. We go through the Quran. We go through everything. Where is that supposed thing written in the scriptures that in this inequality is justified? So to negate that rule of inequality and the inherent injustice in it, we have to continue to fight social injustice. That is the emotional hub behind true social work.
Well, thank you, Bharat. I think we have about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes at the most for questions. So I really invite you to ask your question to Dr. Vatwani. Please introduce yourself so he knows who you are, and keep your question or comment brief so we can gather as many as possible. We've got a lady there. Yeah.
Should we collect questions from multiple people, or do you think you want to do one by one?
Maybe let's see how many hands go up. Yes, if there are more hands that come up, then we can collect them.
Hi, Vanita Shastri. I work with undergraduate students and this age group 18 to 22, and we've seen a big rise in mental health issues with this group, which is almost like a global thing across. And so I wanted to get your words of wisdom on that. How do you deal with it? Because as in a university, the faculty are always really shaken. When a student says, "I couldn't do this because I was depressed or mentally ill or something happened," we really don't know whether we should actually give them the accommodation or it's just an excuse. And the line is very fine and it's really fuzzy. And I think this is something that is really impacting work and young people's lives in a really big way. Thank you.
Recently, I came across in Chicago. I came across an NGO called Thresholds, which is working with the homeless and the mentally ill. I felt that was a beginning wherein the people already had accommodation and they were reaching out. Either the Thresholds group was reaching out very proactively to those patients, or they were reaching out, and it was brilliant. I mean, I felt it was a wonderful exposure which I had. See, the point is this, that if you don't believe in the concept of equality, then essentially what is happening is, whether you like it or not, the haves get much more than the have-nots. Like yesterday we heard in the dynamic lecture that, some of the houses in Varanasi have been bulldozed to create a path to go to that temple. Somebody in the audience said, look, it has done much good, so 100,000 can go. The point is, those 100,000 who are going, let's say from other countries or wherever, they are the privileged. What about the others who want to go and routinely and who are already there? Did they not deserve that life? If you look at philosophers like, let's say, Nelson Mandela, or let's say Mahatma Gandhi or whatever, at the end of the day, equality takes predominance. Equality takes predominance. Social justice takes predominance over everything else. I don't think so. In my mind, there is a doubt. I mean, if that was the case, then I would think, look, what is the future of this guy? He's going to go home and he'll be on medicines for the rest of his life. The point is, he wants to go home. Does he not deserve that simple happiness? I think he does. Now, maybe he may be on a load somewhere else, whatever. We are continuing to give him medicines also nowadays after COVID. So he's there getting medicine. The relatives are happy to have him at home. They don't mind even if he's just sitting there. Do you not allow often your Alzheimer's parent to just be in the house? You do. If we don't value life, then at some point of time, that level of inequality which we are talking about, at some point of time, more and more number of people will go under that level, and only the top 10 people will be left. That's not being fair to the creation per se.
Rahul?
I don't have a question, but I just, in the beginning you said you were going to share with us one of your poems.
Yeah.
So I just want to make
I thought that was the last.
Well, you can share it now as well, and then maybe continue with the questions.
Okay.
Since Rahul has asked.
I thought I was keeping it till the last.
You can do whatever. I just wanted to make sure we didn't run out of time.
No, I won't run out. That is on my mind. Let's go with the questions
All right, is
first.
there any other questions? And we can continue. Kishni.
Thank you, Dr. Vatwani. It was such an honor to hear from you today. I'm Keshni Sagar. I work with Dr. Patel in the Department of Global Health and Social Medicine. One question I had was the experiences that you shared that really helped keep that fire going for you and helped you transform, the last 30 years in the way the impact it had on people on the roads in India. What do you feel that we, as a generation who'd love to carry on that work, should do to be exposed to experiences that can keep us going, if not something that we come across in life otherwise?
That's a very good question. I feel that apart from my own personal experiences, I was helped a lot by reading about people who had participated in the freedom struggle or who had participated in freedom struggle across the world. I mean, you read Nelson Mandela, it's an inspirational book. It helps to be in touch with those figures and the difficulties which they encountered. It helps. It helps in a very big way. I don't know how many of you are aware, there's a lady called Savitribai Phule. She was the first headmistress of India. She was from an OBC, what is known as other backward caste. She was a Mali. She married somebody, Jyotiba Phule, and they decided to do something for education for females, which in that era, in 1848, was literally non-existent. She set up the first school for females, along with a lady called Fatima Sheikh. To cut a long story short, she set up 18 schools between that 1848 to 1852. When she was going to set up the school, people would throw cow dung on her. People would throw cow dung on her. Her husband told her to take an additional sari, change in the school and carry on. She did that when ultimately the parents of Jyotiba Phule threw Jyotiba and his wife out. And they were given refuge with this Fatima Sheikh and Usman Sheikh. Now the point which I'm making is, between 1848 to 1852, they set up 18 schools. 165 years later, Pune University was named as Savitribai Phule Pune University. The golden question is this, that did Savitribai Phule do whatever she was doing because she wanted Pune University to be named as her? No. She did it because she cared. There was that passion. There was that desire to do it. And today, innumerable Indian females who are sitting in the audience or who are hearing it or who are there in India, participate, are there because of her. That's how far things can go. I recently met Dr. Abhay Bang and Rani Bang. I met Dr. Abhay Bang in Gadchiroli. Now, he was a student he did his master's in Johns Hopkins University. He could have very easily stayed behind. He didn't. He chose to go there. He chose to go there and serve the underprivileged of Gadchiroli district in Maharashtra. It becomes an inspirational figure. I mean, after I met him for 10 days, I was in cloud 9. So charged up was I. He was born in Sevagram, a center set up by Gandhi near Nagpur. He was exposed to Vinoba Bhave. I was so this thing. So that helps. That can people actually take you forward? Can those stories take you forward? You have to realize that change is a very slow process. It's not going to happen overnight and it may not happen also. The point is, was an attempt made? The point is, was an attempt made? I have a slide. I mean, I found it very inspirational when I came across this thing. Yeah, this is Hannah Arendt. She says even in the darkest of times, we have the right to expect some illumination, and that such illumination may well come from the uncertain, flickering and often weak light, which is what I and you possess. The uncertain, flickering and often weak light that some men and women, that you and I, in their lives and in their works will kindle under almost all circumstances and shed over the time span that was given to them on earth. Whether the illumination is the light of a candle or that of the blazing sun, only the future will tell. What is clear is that in dark times, light is precious. It always matters. I met him exactly once. He came down and I met him. And somehow I found a kindred soul. It's like brothers, lost brothers in arms. I just casually told him I'm coming to US to give a talk in American Psychiatric Association. He said, why don't you come over here and give a talk? Now, we don't know. He doesn't know. I don't know whether he'll be remembered 20 years down the line. I don't know whether I'll be remembered 20 years down the line. We may be forgotten. We don't even know whether there'll be any impact of this talk in this auditorium or whosoever is hearing virtually. But it's an attempt. It's an attempt. that attempt is justified. And that attempt should keep me and you going. And in dark times, light is precious. It always matters.
Well, on that note, Bharat, I'll request you to recite your poem.
Yes. I can't believe we're almost through the 1 hour. I had a lot to speak.
And for those of you who want to interact with Bharat after the end of the day, is there a plan, Hitesh, that people can mill around?
There's a full reception afterwards.
There is a reception. Okay, yeah.
So this poem is addressed to the homeless, mentally ill. This was in the good old days when I was also going through depression and I felt, my God, I'm not doing anything. If my dreams were mine, then they would be yours. If truth was mine, then I would communicate it to you. If wisdom was mine, then you would be its legacy. But I had nothing, just this pen, paper, and a few words, and my feelings for you from the beginning of time. And if these words communicate pain, then so were you destined. If angst was in my voice, then so was I destined. Just another mortal who happened to meet you, who happened to love you. And if my love was incomplete, then so was it defined. Just another human being who prayed for you. And if my prayers remained unfulfilled, then that was your fate and mine. For the reckoning spares nobody, and time ultimately beckons. And if the beckoning was untimely, then that moment was yours and mine. If life could be founded on hope and wisdom on mere understanding, then the horizons would be mine, the rainbows notwithstanding. But I had nothing. Just this pen, paper, and a few words, and my feelings for you from the beginning of time.
Thank you both very much, and just allow us to give you a very small token of appreciation for coming here.
Thank you.
This is swag, as it's called in the US. But it includes some chocolate of a Harvard vintage.
Thank you. Thanks,
Vikram, thank you also very much.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure, and there's no doubt why you would connect in a single instant. Both of you are soul brothers. Thank you both very much.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Bharat. What a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.